Good afternoon, citizen workers. That's all right. I think I've got a very loud voice. So does anybody have any problems being able to hear me or anything like that? I could really project it more if need be. But anyways, thank you for coming this afternoon. My name is Derek Wilmot, and this is Bobby Hollingsworth. We're both at Clemson University Library and Clemson University Library, excuse me. And what we'll be talking about today is the successful space management project that we did over at Clemson and how we use that as a primer, essentially, for future projects over at the university libraries. This is more of the meat and potatoes of how we did it. Usually what I've seen in the past is that a lot of articles and such have always referred to how it's been done, or what they're going to do, and then afterwards what they've done, but not a lot about the actual work that's being done in that process. So to get things started, just to show you our obligatory university libraries, who we are. We are over 1.2 million print volumes. We've got 27 faculty librarians, 55 library staff. We've just become an R1 institution in 2017. Back in 2014, when this project was done to establish what we are doing now today, we were just chasing the whole top 20 status for the public institutions there. So you can see that we're a rather mid-sized library with about 24,000 FTEs and a little over 5,000 employees. So a lot of projects, people they have a need of space. Renovation is a very popular thing at the moment. Often what is being done is we're having to take materials out of off those shelves, move the shelves out. A lot of libraries are having to rethink about how they're using that space. And so that we were doing the same thing, but we were doing it as an ad hoc situation each time. So we would start with a project, and we would get a group of people from different parts of the library, throw them together, and they'd have to reinvent the wheel all over again, each and every time. And when you have new people coming in, they would have to start that process again. So one of our projects that was done years ago, prior to me being part of it, was our compact shelving. We had taken our first and second floors, collapsed them. We are using the Library of Congress called classification. So the A's and B's were put onto one floor, and we renovated the entire second floor for our computing services and turn it into classrooms and other spaces that were needed, because there's a big desire for more space for other types of things besides our collections. Now, much of those materials were moved to offsite storage, and some of it was actually withdrawn from the collection completely. So when you want to go from one thing, which is what is on your left, where you want to go from a more traditional style and you want to make it more usable, a more flexible system, that's one of the things that we did there. But the problem is we didn't retain that knowledge for future space needs. Here's another repurposing project. They had to reinvent the wheel again for the Learning Commons West and Learning Commons East on the fourth floor of the library, which had previously been our reference materials. And it was a lot of materials. So what ended up happening there was a lot of those materials were then moved and shifted into the lower ends of the first floor and other areas of the library, and with some of it being sent to offsite storage or recycled altogether, deaccession. We've even done some other types of renovations where even our coffee shop had to be changed, and we actually mixed that up. On the left was an older version of it. It was a single floor. We moved it to created a second space and put in a second level into that original space there. So now we've got even more needed space, just a better efficiency and better use of our resources for the building itself. What we did with the Adobe Digital Studio project was back in 2014. I guess I do walk a lot. I should be. It's because I'm looking over the monitor. Anyways, the fifth floor project at R.M. Cooper Library was the first project that we wanted to establish a precedent for future projects there. I'd worn many different hats in cataloging previously. So I'd been a special projects cataloger, a little bit about myself here, electronic resources cataloger, everything to do with catalog. But we had gone through, Clemson University Libraries had gone through a major organizational change and had brought in we finally got around to bringing our cataloging and acquisitions departments together, our units together, and created 5 different teams. And I was part of the electronic resources team. We had a collection management acquisitions team, and there was going to be a person who was going to be the team lead for that, but due to health reasons, she retired early. And about that time, that's when this project came along. And so, being most junior faculty and the most versatile of the group, I was moved over and asked to take on this assignment. So, as I was saying, we had one catalog librarian who'd never had any experience in this type of work before. And I was assigned 3 acquisition staff from the acquisitions collection management team to work with me, but they were given I was only allowed to use them part-time on this project. And we had a large number of material that we needed to move out to either relocate, to reaccession, or to shift within the collection. So, and we had a very short window to operate within. So I was actually brought on board early August to start this process, and we were told that we needed to have it done by December of 2014. So this is what it looked like before the project started, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the amount of material that was in there, it's packed in there. It was a well-used area. There was a lot of use by students to use it as a space to study, but not really using the collection itself. This was the Qs, the QAs, which is primarily your the sciences and math materials that were.
Hi, how are you?
So, and here's another shot from a different angle. My first reaction was, okay, what do I need to do to get this project off the ground? So I came up with, I did what most librarians would do, and a lot of people, is I jumped into the literature itself and dove into the literature to see what had previously been done. I talked to other librarians who had already done similar projects, and I was getting different responses on the best method to approach this project. So, taking what I learned from all those different viewpoints, I came up with my own action plan for it, which was to essentially, I contacted the collection development librarian who had already previously been working on this to make deselection and relocation decisions on this whole process. So I was working in collaboration with them early on, at the early stages of this. They had been a team that had gone through and made these decisions. They put it onto an Excel spreadsheet, and then what I did with that was I wanted to make it more accessible so that it wasn't just my team that just looking at individual spreadsheets to make this to work. What we did was we ended up putting it on Google Drive, making it available to everybody on our team. So just rethinking the way we were doing this process. We also, as we were managing the project, we would also be able to make changes and updates, and keeping everybody that was a stakeholder on this project informed of what we were doing. So that's the other thing that we did as a cataloger. I recognize that we also have to reuse the data, or we have to be able to pull material, data out that we're using within our catalog, so that at any future time, if anybody needed to go back and review any of the work that was done on there, or if there was any need, we had specific codes and notes that we actually indicated on either the item record, which we used, the bibliographic mark record, or the holding statement. So there was always this tie-in between these different records on there. And then I established workflows and processes for us to be able to manage this project, written down procedures, keeping everybody informed of that. Also put those into the cloud as well, so that we were all on the same team. If there were any changes that needed to be done on the project, we could make those changes and everybody would be aware of it as we were moving. Because we had such a limited time frame to be able to work on this, I had to bring everybody up to speed quickly, get everybody moving along, and while we were doing that, I also went out and identified all the stakeholders that were going to be part of the project. So that included our public relations people. They had to put out information to our faculty, to the library community at large, to let them know what was going to be coming into that space. The reason why we're removing all those materials was for the Adobe Digital Studio project, which is what Bobby will be talking about fairly soon. So having everybody on board, knowing what was going on, to alleviate any backlash by faculty. Yes, sir.
So were you mandated to move the entire collection on it?
Just that section that I showed you,
On
which
that
is the
floor.
Q to QA. So the rest of the collection we were able to maintain still, although there was going to be a discussion of moving those materials out at a future date for other needs. But that hadn't been decided yet. And actually what ended up happening was the dean that was in charge of that, of the libraries at the time, ended up resigning within about a year. So her vision of what she had in place didn't carry forward with the next dean that came along.
So you were mandated to move everything out of there, even the heavily circulating materials?
Yes, but what we did was if we did, it was being moved into the main collection. That was something that was important to maintain. Right, that was the shifting part. So the only materials that were actually discarded were those that were of extremely low use, hadn't been touched. There were parameters that the collection development librarian had already made. But I also reviewed those decisions with her afterwards once I was brought in onto the project itself. So these decisions have been pre-selected. But I went back to make sure that those decisions were accurate, because a lot of times when they're going through that process, our collection development librarians, when they go through the process, they're looking at it from the data that they've collected. And so that doesn't always match with what's actually the reality that's on the shelf either. So going back and working through that process. Right. Yeah,
Do you have a remote storage facility?
And we did. That was we had a brand new storage facility that had just come out the year before that. So that gave us a new opportunity to be able to relocate low usage materials out there, and that was part of this whole process. So, that was the other portion of it. We talking with our facilities folks, we put up signage to let everybody know what area was being impacted by the library, because sometimes they just may not have read that email, or other ways that we put it on the social media, just other ways of being able to communicate that information. So actually having physical signage there and spacing that out so that other people would know what we were doing was rather important as well. The other component of it was that we had to set up memorandums of understanding with our recycling department and our courier service, which was not in-house. We had a contract with the courier service that was moving materials to offsite storage to the other facilities on the other libraries at Clemson University. We have a total of 4 facilities that are part of this structure. And since we were not allowed to actually use too many, we had to do this on a bit of a budget, on a low budget there, then we had to renegotiate with that courier service to be able to take on more of those resources out to offsite facilities, which was through our associate dean and myself. We worked that out. Same thing with recycling. They had a regular service that would come in daily to pick up materials that were being taken out to recycling. I worked out a system with them so that they would pick up daily an increased amount of material. Now, this was all done in the fall, and if anybody knows anything about Clemson, they love their football. So this was in competition with the football game days as well. So those are some issues that we had to consider as we were moving along on this. And then we, since I said earlier that we had reorganized, well, part of that reorganization meant that we had taken our technical services team, our unit, and had moved most of them off-site, outside of Clemson, outside of Cooper Library itself, to our library depot, which is the off-site storage facility as well. So much of our purchasing and everything now takes place out there, and then is moved onto campus into the different libraries. So, but that meant that there was open space within the library itself that could be repurposed just for this project. And talking to the associate dean and with others that were a part of it, facilities, we were able to have that space reconfigured. It was about 1,700 square feet, 1,300 square feet of space reconfigured to accommodate 6 PC stations, computers, 4 shelf ranges, which had 48 sections on it. I commandeered all the carts that I possibly could, which was basically 14 book carts, a flatbed cart to be able to move bins, because we wanted to recycle the same bins back and forth instead of using a lot of cardboard boxes that would sit for any period of time. So this was going to help us to have a constant flow of material going from where Cooper Library was to the library depot, And then we had 10 rollout bins for recycling materials that could manage up to about 400 pounds each of weight. We realized that that was too much. We filled it up to the top and had to make some minor adjustments along that as well. I hired 4 students because there were only 4 of us that were working on it. And we had, and then I set up a weekly, daily schedules and I started training my people within the first 4 weeks of this whole process. So I had everything in place by early September. The recruitment, the training, everything that was done on that. And we were moving rather rapidly on that process. I had already identified who our stakeholders were, like I said, and part of that process was this is working within their constraints. At 10 a.m. they would pick up, and at 1 p.m. they would pick up. So they would drop 15 bins off that were empty and pick up 15 bins that were full in the morning, and the same thing happened in the afternoon. So we were constantly moving 30 bins of materials to offsite storage at that point in time. And then there were only about 2.5 people at any given time over in at the offsite storage facility for high density storage to be able to accession those materials onto high density storage. So trying to keep in mind all the people that were part of the project and what their needs were, and not to overwhelm any one particular group was also what I did as the team lead. And then of course, as I was saying, University Recycling was picking up those bins every day. So on the 5th week we began the project. We had these 2 workflows going at the same time. One of the things that we did was I had teamed up, I created 4 small teams out of the 8 people that were there. So a student was paired up with a staff member. Well, actually, a staff member was paired up with a student. We were working off the student's schedule. Since the acquisitions folks were only able to devote about 15 to 20 hours a week, and the students were only able to work up to 20 hours a week. We worked around their schedule, and so we had somebody that was there all the time, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and it worked out actually in that process. We had a number of overlap at that point in a couple of instances, but we kept things moving along quite well. So for the deselection and recycling work, relocation was off, like I said, 9 miles from the main campus. And then we adjusted our process and had to troubleshoot as we were going along as well, because part of it is once you start getting into your catalog, you start finding problems. But we had a level of process on that as well, where if it was a simple issue, then the acquisitions folks who had been trained could actually identify and take care of the problem early on. If it was something that needed a little more work, then they popped that over to me. If it was something that required a different cataloger to work on it, if I didn't have the expertise on it, then I would contact that person, and in consultation with that individual, we would go ahead and address the problem as we went along. Surprisingly, there wasn't as many issues. We had a pretty good, pretty clean set of records there. But what we did end up finding was that there were issues with the spreadsheet that we had uploaded. There were things that didn't quite match with reality, essentially, with what we found on the shelves. And so we had to make a number of changes with that. Part of the process also was if we had to completely discard or deaccession something, we had to make sure, obviously, that we took our holding statement off of OCLC so that other libraries wouldn't think we still owned it. It's surprising how many places don't always do that. And so, so we did take all that into account as well. And then when everything was done with those two levels of work, what we ended up doing was then the shifting began. So what was left over, that's what we moved over into the main section. Now that main section, when we had started our work, we also took into account the materials that we would have to impact in the main collection as well. So it was much larger than the original area that was being renovated for the Adobe Digital Studio itself. We had to take that into account and work accordingly. And we were able to finish actually rather early. We finished by November the second week of November, actually. This is just to show you a little bit of what the bins were like. We took into account that injuries happened because of fatigue, so we kept things at about 35 pounds worth of weight. and that's what the scale was for. So and initially we used the scale until we kind of were able to eyeball it after a while and say, okay, now we know what the weight limits on these things are, and it was to maintain a level of safety as well, because if you're moving a lot of material, and 35 pounds is actually what OSHA standards have set, but it also reduces the level of fatigue that can occur with an individual, which can cause problems with injuries and such. And we didn't want to do that. And this is some of the shelving that we had as well. So the spreadsheet we worked off of, pretty much everything on the left is what the collection development librarians had done in their decision-making process, what they wanted to keep, what they wanted to store in off-site storage, and then everything on the right was what we actually, what we were doing, and we maintained that information. It's a little busy, as you can see, we had to collapse some of the columns and things like that because they weren't always necessary as to what we needed to have done with them. And then by the time we were done, we had completely taken everything off those shelves and cleared that space out rather quickly. Some of the roadblocks we had was time and staffing. Your usual issues that happen, life events occur, somebody might have had a baby, whatever. So you work around those. In this case, we didn't have anybody have any babies during the time in the course of this project, but we still had some scheduling conflicts that occurred, and so we ended up readjusting our schedules as needed. Sometimes the acquisitions folks would step in, or I myself would step in to fill in the gaps during those times. Materials, you go down to any library, there's going to be some level of dust. This one was much dustier than we thought, so that was another issue. So we also had to keep around materials, like lab coats, things like that, even masks in some cases, so that because some people were just a little extra sensitive to dust and such, taking those things into account. And as I said earlier, the data accuracy on spreadsheets wasn't always up to par, so we had to work around that. Cataloging, troubleshooting, and such. And then just your, we were competing for space as well. That area that we had renovated briefly for our processing area was also the same spot that our government documents folks were using. So they were using part of the space, we were using the space, and we had to kind of keep each other from stepping on each other's toes. Same thing happened with the rollout bins. So there was a little bit of competition for those for recycling materials as well. But we negotiated and worked all those processes out as we went along, just on a day-to-day basis, because what their needs were and what our needs were didn't always match out for that particular day of the week. And then and then we had students that once you started moving things out, people started kind of wanting to sit inside those areas regardless. So if they wanted to sit on the floor, they were right in front of you, and you had to kind of work around them or ask them to politely move. So just simple things like that. Some of the things that we learned is you really need to have a dedicated staff that's involved in this, because having to reinvent the wheel each time just seems to be counterproductive and not as efficient as it could be. So this set the stage. Once we were done with this project, everybody was really satisfied with it. It set the stage for us to go ahead and establish that for other projects as it went along. And make sure that you have a flexible plan, that it's something that you can actually, that it's not so rigid that if some part of it doesn't work out, that you have people just sitting and not doing anything for their time that they're at work. So if we couldn't recycle, when our focus was more on in the area of choosing those materials that were going to go to offsite storage. If they couldn't do the offsite storage portion of it, then it was more of the recycling. If there was any other combinations of work that we could do, any kind of database cleanup that was being set aside weekly, then we could go and do that. So it just kind of maintaining that momentum. Working with my staff, there was a couple of times that I just had them take a break because the momentum was so, we were moving at such at a high level that fatigue could also set in on that. And so and people get kind of tired about just kind of keeping up with that level of work. So there was even a day that I came in and brought donuts and coffee and just let people kind of relax and talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. But it also developed an esprit de corps. It brought us a little more closer together as to the project itself. And just as the team lead, it's to just maintain that level of cheerleading in a way, keeping everybody moving forward and showing that a level of progress, not just for your team, but to all the other stakeholders that are also involved with it, to let them know how soon we're going to be finished. because there was even times when the recycling folks were saying, "Is there more coming?" We're trying to compete and recognize that they've got different priorities as well that aren't always going to be yours. So trying to work within their time frames and their processes also means that you have to maintain a flexible process there. So anyways, that was the amount of work, the type of work that we did and how we did it over in our area. I'm going to turn it over to Bobby unless anybody else has any questions before we do that.
What was the portion between what you recycled and what you sent off to storage?
Well, let me see. It's been a few years since I looked at that, actually. So we actually moved. Oh, it has been a while. So about a third of what we had was actually recycled, and the remainder of it went to offsite storage. Most of it went to offsite storage with like about 5,000 items that we retained on the shelves and moved back into, or shifted onto the shelves. And mind you, most of the materials that we shifted were primarily monographs and select serials. The rest of it that was either deselected, deaccessioned, were serials, and things that were not into offsite storage were also serials as well.
Okay, my name is Bobby Hollingsworth. I am the Learning Commons Coordinator at Clemson University Libraries. What I'm going to talk about is why all this happened in the first place. And what was going on is we were making room for the Adobe Digital Studio. But prior to that, even, you look at this map here, the fourth floor. Our first iteration with the Digital Studio at all was actually on this line right here. I'm going to show you 2 slides from that. We got 4 Mac Pros and dual monitors. We just stuck them out there and said, have at it. We had Adobe Digital, Adobe software on there and some other things. But what we did after that initial run, we came up with the Cooper Digital Studio, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a second as well. But Cooper Digital Studio, that was very successful, and we were actually getting ready to enter a partnership with Adobe for the Creative Cloud. And the whole Creative Cloud is nice software, but you can't touch it. So when we were in negotiation, they were like, "Hey, why don't we?" And we're like, "Why don't we?" And so we kind of came to this like, why don't we get a studio going? We already have one. Why don't we get something bigger, better, grander, all that stuff. So that's kind of how it all started. Before that, let me show you the humble beginnings here. Okay, this was the 4 Mac Pros right here. We kind of set up on the wall and put some software on it to have at it, and they did. And I mean, there was definitely a need. And at the same time, we were getting, we had ramped up our equipment technology lending, so people could actually capture images and have mics and tripods and stuff. So we were, higher end stuff, not just the low end point and shoot cameras and stuff like that. So the Cooper Digital Studio on the 4th floor, back there at the back where I first showed former staff's workroom, opened in the spring 2014. Those monitors came over. We had a green screen, mobile, flip-up green screen, 2 large flatbed scanners. Had some software on there, and we also had a dedicated staff member and support, work study, that sort of thing as well. So you can see the formal workroom right here. It's not going to look too much grander than this when we get to the actual studio. There's more of it, and then the next one is actually the space. Pretty sparse, right? But we did have, we wanted to get the space, wanted to get in it, and once we got in there, that's when the negotiating started for Creative Cloud and why we wanted to go up to another space. So I'll just show you a few pictures of that. And then we move up to the 5th floor. 5th floor, you come in the lobby, as I said, on the 4th floor, you come in here. 5th floor is going to be up here, and that's the space that Derek had mentioned. That's the space that's being cleared. That's where the Adobe Digital Studio was going to go. Okay. Once again, picture here of it cleared, ready for construction. I want you to take note of these walls right here. I'll show you in a second here. These walls will be gone. Okay, this is very HDTV-like. They're going to be gone, and it's going to look completely different here. You'll be able to come in when you come in that lobby, that picture I showed you. From the lobby, you'll be able to see what you will walk in and see exactly what's in there. I'll show you a picture of that in a second. But before that, Adobe Digital Studio, the official opening was October 2015, a little over 2,400 square feet. There's a collaboration between the library, our campus IT, and Adobe. Okay, had a dedicated video and audio production studios, 7 large screen monitors. I'll show you where those are. Dual screen post-production machines, and of course the cloud, and that was our beginning opening hours right there. So I want to show you, this is the other side of that wall I showed you that would be gone, and I'll show you a picture in a second. You see the Adobe Digital Studio is coming. This will be gone in the next slide. So you'll see it. And there it is right there. What they actually did, they came out, that balcony is 5 feet out into the lobby. So when you walk in, this is a good picture. When you walk in, you go up there and your eyes immediately go up there and say, hey, what's going on up there? And that's the whole idea. You see Adobe on the side here, what's happening, that studio. And I'll show you some more pictures, grander pictures too. This is from the 6th floor looking down on the Adobe Digital Studio. And you can see the monitors, all the stuff going on here. And I'll get to that's from the 5th floor right there. That's the actual architectural design for, this is the green screen video production studio right here. I'll show you another picture of that in just a second. Just a few more shots here. This is looking out, and you'll see, once again, there's the wall right there that we moved. It's interesting because, I'll show you a picture here in just a second of this, once we get to the green screen. When our coffee shop closed down, they closed it down, opened up a Starbucks there. And when they did that, they liked the whole taking the walls out so much, they took out a wall. So it's kind of like, hey, our influence was pretty good, pretty nice. But you can see we actually have the studio here. We've got a grid up there for lighting and anything else we want. We've got green screen. We've got the one-touch button production there. And this is actually the shot right here. That is the coffee shop over there. That's the wall that's taken down. And they just changed the whole complex of the library, the whole complexion of it. Everything looks different there. You can look through, you can see the walls. It's a lot easier to move around the library and just kind of get a visual aspect of what the library is going on. But that's it as far as Adobe Digital Studio. If you have any questions, ask me afterwards, and Derek will continue on with what we're doing now. So.
Right, and these are some of the projects that we're currently doing and some of the future projects that we're working on. So using some of the same processes that we already have. Just one thing that we're looking at is we're actually considered improving some of our workflow processes on this as well. So one thing we're going to do is we actually lost our processing area that we originally had. That it just, it was a one-time thing basically. But what we're doing now is we had to rethink it. So instead of working in trying to develop another room space or something like that, what we're going to do is we're going to be working directly on the shelf, from the shelves themselves, using laptops and carts, flagging the materials that are going to be on those shelves, and that'll expedite the process a little bit easier. And then have our bins moved to the courier area to be picked up and transported to where they need to go. As for the bins that we're going to be, and this is for the upcoming 5th and 6th floor projects, even bigger, all the Q through Zs are going to be looked at, and are going to be downsizing those for other, to repurpose a lot of that space for other needs. So a lot of that is driving these innovations at this point in time. So for smaller projects, what we've done is we've started to rent a van. Actually, that takes the courier out of the process, puts more control in our hands, and we can and it's cheaper in the long run because we can move things much more rapidly under our control and still work with our offsite storage facility folks. The other thing is that it gives us a lot more flexibility, like it says up there. And then the other component of it is when we're getting ready when we start flagging all the materials on the shelves for recycling purposes or deselection, since we're going to be already making those changes from the laptops, is we're going to have a moving company come in and just move those materials that are going to be going to offsite storage that have been identified and flagged and taken out to the recycling center and dropped off over there instead of having them come on a day-to-day basis picking things up. And the reason we're doing that, speaking to the University Recycling Center folks, they were thrilled. It was like, you put it anywhere you want at that point, So they were very happy to hear that we had rethought that process, and it was just one less pickup. There's only about 6 of them for the entire campus, and so it's a lot of work on their part to have to do this on a day-to-day basis with us. So rethinking how our processes are and making sure that we can kind of work with those stakeholders is what we've done or what we're planning on doing as well with current and future projects there. And that's actually taking it right to the very end now. So if there's any other questions or any projects that you guys are working on that you might want to.
So with the movers, are you saying that you flag things on and they pull them off the shelf?
We're about to try that out. It is a test on that one. So it's going to be one of the floors that we're going to be working with. We're going to put our flags on there or some of their identifier to indicate. And it's going to it's primarily going to be serials that we're going to be looking at to deaccession. The monographs we pretty much want to retain for the most part, unless it's a duplicate or something like that. But we might develop a separate process for those individual duplicated monograph prints, or we'll incorporate it somehow. But yeah, we're going to basically tag them either with like little sticky notes or something, or not sticky notes, but little lead tags or red tags.
Get the little dots.
The little
Sometimes they
dots,
fall
right?
off.
That's what I was trying to do. The dots
That
would be
comes
easier.
with a fall off.
Right, so we got to be careful about that, but we might do something where we identify them with the red dots, but also with something else that'll be a little fixed to that, so it'll highlight a whole range or something like that. So if it does fall off, we've got everything covered on that, and then but
We're pretty sure we can get what's on the 6th floor, all the down to the 5th floor, and up to the 6th floor. That's the idea. And that's going to be, like Derek said, he's taking out the balance in serials there. And I think that's, just measuring it. It's measured years ago, and it can be done. Just people power to do it and everything else. So it's in the undertaking. So I think that's the next charge. You have a question? Yes.
We've done where we tend to have a mover come in and use the frame and use permanent labels because people want to don't fall off like a bucket. And then movers are fabulous because it's bright colored dot. You only take the ones that are bright colored, don't take anything else.
since they're being recycled anyway, the easiest thing to do is to take a black marker or something like that.
Yeah, we're doing dots because we don't
That
want
would
to get
actually-
lost in the last one.
Right.
Yeah, and then it's on the side.
And we have an Excel file to match.
So there's options out there. I mean, it's just, sometimes you just got to start rethinking about the way you're moving materials, whether it's to an off-site storage facility, whether it's being shifted, and just rethink what do you have available, what are your resources that you have available, and how can you work within those constraints. So basically working with what you have. And sometimes you can come up with some really creative methods that can expedite the process there and do it in such a way that it can meet the deadlines. So far, we have using the processes that we currently have, we've been well below whatever deadlines that have been established for us. So, and having the same veteran group that's working on it really helps because they're not having to be retrained and the processes are already out there. It's already there's a foundation for everybody to work from. So it keeps everybody moving. Did you have another question? Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
Yes. Any projects that you guys would like to talk about or anything and say, we moved 100,000? No.
What were your biggest communication challenges?
Oh, the biggest, usually it was primarily with our recycling folks. They were just so busy with football game day that they weren't always picking up when they should be. So I'd come in on a Monday morning and our recycling bin said, yeah, I've been picked up from Friday there, and so or a Tuesday or something like that. So I was the first thing that I did was I contacted them and also kept in contact with our facilities folks because they were all part of that same process. But that was one of the biggest ones. Yes, sir.
So is this project funded partly by the campus, partly by Adobe, partly by the library?
The renovation was for that, yes, but pulling the materials off, that was all on us.
So you had to pick up the cost of the students.
We did, right. And actually, when I worked with the students there, when we hired them, I knew that we could hire them temporarily, but I also recognized that depending on the length of time, that I didn't want to shortchange them. So I kept that. So we had other projects at the end there up until December when they left, so that they could still have a steady paycheck. Plus, it helped us with database cleanup afterwards too, and many of them went on to other projects for us in the spring.
But the construction costs, the remodeling costs, that was paid for either by the campus or by Adobe? Or
It was a combination.
Library, campus IT, and Adobe.
So library put some money into the remodeling also?
We put most of the money in, and the other two entities the library put most of the money in.
But taking out walls, that's an expensive process. Did you
It
have
is.
your F&S people do that, or did you have to have contractors?
We had contracted out, all of that was contracted out, and then when we actually went through and did the punch list and all that stuff, that was handled a little bit through our facilities too, like, because we didn't know exactly, like, hey, this shouldn't look like, I mean, it didn't look right, but they came around and said, yeah, this isn't right. So we had guys coming around going, oh, okay, I'm glad. So it was nice having them involved with it as well.
Well, they always like to be involved.
Oh yeah, they do, but they did a really good job, and we were really thankful that they did, because like some of the things that we thought were like, this shouldn't be like this, and like, well, put it on the punch list, put it on the punch. They were like, put everything on the punch list, anything you don't like, put it on there. And they actually went around and said, that's not right, that's not right. And that was good, those things that we didn't see.
So did Adobe pay for all the equipment then?
No, they paid, because what happened is in the agreement, we got a really, really, really good deal on the Creative Cloud, all the software. And what the software allowed everybody to do
That was part
was,
of the campus license.
yeah, that was what the campus license said, that everybody Clemson affiliated had to download everything that Adobe had, and also you could download at home as well. So basically, we had 2 downloads per a Clemson affiliate. So you could have it at home, you could have all the stuff, and you could run it on everything, download it on 2 devices, I guess, or 2 machines. That was a big deal we got with them. So the agreement was, okay, we'll do this to kind of get the name out there, get the project out there, because we were using it anyway. We were using a standalone license instead of the Creative Cloud. But the cost went through the 3 of us, but it was we had majority stake in the cost of that.
So with all the remodeling, we bought new furniture, it was like 2. So what is this, about $3 million?
It wasn't that much. We did pretty well. I don't know the exact number, because we had asked for more, and we got cut on the end of it as far as equipment and the studio's video and audio. We didn't get the.
So that's expensive.
It's pretty expensive, but I was kind of sore about that, because that's what we really, really wanted was that. It's one of those things. But I mean, we since then, 2015, we've gone back and upgraded some of those things already. And some of them just never worked from the beginning the way we wanted to. So we just went ahead and upgraded those. And we got the money the next year or the year after that.
So we did a smaller space center at the university, kind of the same way. Cost us about $700K total.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was equipment, so we put a big vis wall up.
Yeah, right.
$30,000.
Yeah, we did that in another space down on the 4th floor with the vis wall put in. But yeah, that's one of the things. But yeah, you're a champion Urbana, or yeah. But yeah, is it a multimedia studio as well? Is that what the space you're talking about?
This is in the engineering library.
Okay, gotcha.
In the undergrad library, we also have green screens and media commons. So
yeah, right.
if I added that price, it would be another $700K.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, it was I like I said, I don't know the final tally of what it was, because like I said, I probably need to do the one for us, but I don't know what everything we were going to put into it as well.
And then
It's like a big project.
oh, thank you. In this past summer, we actually had a new map. The map department worked with us and put in an upscale lab, classroom on our 2nd floor. So that, even that, it was renovated the 2nd time since all this.
And what's the space on the 4th floor? This wall is something different too?
That's what they call the brown room. When you first walk in the library, there it is on your right, and it's just a room that was it's like a meeting space. But they put the biz wall up there. Actually, the technology's never been exactly what we wanted. It was old software. It was a partnership with Dell and a few other CCIT, our IT people, and the library once again to update that room. It gets used. We wish we get more use, and I think what we're going to do is we're working out a partnership with Faculty Senate and a few others right now to actually upgrade that room and get some equipment done in exchange for a faculty club that will be in there you know.
Sometimes.
It'll be there like
Technologies.
monthly, bi-monthly,
Right.
something like that, but we're gonna try to do something like that.
We're gonna do presentations.
Yeah, we don't know what we're gonna do with the Viz wall yet, because it gets some use, but it doesn't get the use people like it, and the software that we have running it is more complex than these.
Well, now that we can do really good LEDs and very thin bezels, so you can run Windows 10.
Yeah,
So
and
literally,
see,
that's
see, we-
that's where our Viz wall is.
Yeah, exactly, and that's when we go out, we're gonna find, I know that we've talked to Georgia State, and they use the same thing, and like
Georgia State has
Coca-Cola, I
that wall,
think
right.
they use something like that. I've got names of ones that have
I
actually
can
worked.
send you some information about ours.
That would be great, that'd be great. Do you work in engineering, or you work in the main library?
I'm in the engineering lab.
Okay,
so we
okay,
have
yeah.
an engineering lab.
I'd like to get your card there, I'd like to talk to you about space anyway, we're doing a whole space, R1 space thing at some point, so I'd like to talk to you about that, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.